Welcome to the show, guys. You're tuned into Two Guys One Octagon. As always, thank you so much, Iso Lando, for bringing us in. That was his song Problem Child off of Look Mom, I'm a Rapper. Please tune in to his album. Links will be in the description below. But I am your co-host, Jesse Moreno, joined by your other beautiful co-host, John Logan Hines. JL, how you doing?
Still recovering, Jesse. I'm still recovering mentally, physically, emotionally. And I think it's about time that we crack open a beer to help with that recovery.
About time. It is.
Ooh, man, I got some fizz. Love that. Yeah, no, man, tough week of betting. I'm sure we're going to get to it. But I called it out and knew that I was going to have a negative experience at some point, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. So to be honest with you, man, I'm trying to stay in the fight David Goggins style, battle back with a couple small bets on the NBA and kind of get back into it. But couldn't be more excited for Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic this weekend. The trilogy, it's a decent card, but really highlighted by that fight and getting to see DC fight one more time. Can't wait to talk about it and jump in, man.
Yeah, we'll get into the whole thing, but before we do, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, tell us what you think in the comments below, give us your picks as well, and then follow us on Twitter at Two Guys One Octagon. That's where we put out all of our picks the day of the fight, so tune in there for sure. But we have a fully loaded episode for you guys this week. As always, we're going to look at the card, UFC 252, Miocic versus Cormier 3, as well as all the fights on the undercard as well. We have the head-to-head where me and JL will debate on the Miocic versus Cormier fight, also O'Malley versus Vera. Then we also have our segments on the MMA Newsroom and conclude with the great debate. But before we do any of that, let's look to last week. UFC Vegas 6, Lewis versus Oleinik. It was actually, in my opinion, a pretty fun card as far as some of the fights were concerned. I had a good time. JL, I know it wasn't the best week for you, but what were your thoughts on the card? What were your standout moments? I got a couple highlighted here, but the floor is yours before we dive deep into the records.
It got to the point where it was comical for me. So to lose every single one of my bets on Saturday night was not a good feeling. I did the thing that I do. So I'm a huge Chelsea soccer fan. I'm also a massive Florida Gator football fan. And whenever shit starts to turn sideways with either one of those teams, I just turn to one thing, and that's alcohol. And I start drinking heavily until I can't feel the pain of losing anymore. So that's what I did Saturday night once I realized that this was kind of, the momentum and the tide was turning against me. But I still had fun, man. I still enjoyed Derek Lewis's performance despite getting that pick wrong. And I thought maybe that would be the one where I finally kind of bounced back on. But overall, man, I think a pretty entertaining card. I think you're right.
I think so too. I mean, one of the biggest, I think the fight that I had the most fun watching was the Kevin Holland fight. That was really competitive, on the edge of my seat. I wanted to hop into live betting on that one, but they had Kevin Holland get up as high as like minus 1,100, and I didn't want to bet. Forgetting the other guy's name, I apologize. I couldn't bet against his power at minus 1,100 odds on Kevin Holland, but it was a fun fight. Kevin Holland caught that body that he was hoping for, and it was a beautiful mouthpiece flying classic knockout. But then Beneil Dariush then stole the show too with his spinning back fist. So for me, Beneil definitely was knockout of the night.
That was the only fight I won money on all night, and that was a live bet play. That was the only fight that I won money on.
That was a good bet too.
So thank you, Beneil. Appreciate you, man. I had that read right. Yeah. I think we had that read right totally. But the odds were too rough there to bet on it beforehand. And I think at some point during that fight there, the odds came a little closer, and that's when I pulled the trigger on that.
Yeah, that's kind of, as far as next steps for Beneil too, he's kind of walking into another tough spot. He's shown a lot of improvements, and now he's a stand-up guy when everyone thought he was a jiu-jitsu guy. So as long as he can fall back on that jiu-jitsu when it's needed, he's going to do really well at 155. I am nervous, though, to see what comes next, because once you crack back into that top 10 of 155, it's a murderer's row, and it gets pretty tight up there at the top. So interested to see where Beneil goes next. Hopefully we can capitalize on some more winnings on him. But Chris Weidman, he's kind of been on the talk of the town lately with some of these interviews. Chris Weidman saying that he's back in the 185 division. For me, I'm not into the hype, man. I'm not buying it. I'm not. I think he got a win over Omar, and I took a lot. I had a 2-unit play on Omar straight up, and then I also took him live at the end of the first because I liked what I saw from him. But once I saw it going to the third round and the look on Chris Weidman's face going to the third round, I didn't like what I saw, and I kind of wish I held my chips a little closer, went live on Chris Weidman going into the third, because I did not think Chris Weidman was going to lose once you saw the look in his eyes going into the third. And I'm not a guy that typically goes off of that emotional stuff, but you just had a feeling that Chris Weidman was going to find a way to win, and Omari Akhmedov kind of quit in there, in my opinion. Just coasted. And
yeah, it was easily 1-1 going into that third round. And to be honest with you, I was right there with you. I was kind of feeling good right until like the beginning. It was within the first 30 seconds. And then as soon as Weidman got that takedown, I knew it was over for us, and mainly me. So, because I had a 4-unit play on Omari. So that was really banking on that one coming through for your boy. But no, I don't think I'm not on the Weidman train yet quite either. I mean, I got to see him win again against, top 15 opponent to really start to take him seriously. I mean, you do have to give him credit though, because he went out and knowing that it was 1-1 going into that third round, to our point, and went against us, but like he understood the situation. I thought he showed some like really high fight IQ by going back to what worked for him in round one, and getting it to where he needed to be to dominate. And he truly did dominate that third round, like well-deserved victory.
he definitely did. I just feel like I'm seeing something uncomfortable in Chris Weidman, is that he's been in the game for this long. He had success early on, but I feel like he's still struggling to find his identity at this point. Ever since the Luke Rockhold loss, he hasn't really looked consistent in his style. This time, I think Paul Felder called it out, like he's coming out looking like Wonder Boy because he was doing the Taekwondo jumping back and forth. I know he spent time in the camp there, but dude, you're
Karate.
Taekwondo. But that's just weird to see from former UFC champion, a real veteran of the UFC, that they're coming out with a different style every time. Jacare Souza, he was a boxer. This time he was a little bit of Taekwondo, then a diehard single leg wrestler like we saw back in the day. And then it's just weird right now for Chris Weidman. But I think if he caught someone at the top, like Yoel Romero again, or Apollo Costa, and especially a style bender, I really think we're seeing round 1 KOs on this, because if he can't get that single leg, now it looks like he's a liability on the feet. So I am not excited to see Chris Weidman fight again. I think we should just call it a retirement. He goes out on a win. He had his highs back in 2013, but yeah, it's time to move on, Chris.
You know who else I think we should give a shout out to is Darren Stewart, because I think that we kind of I definitely don't think that we gave him his credit in last week's episode. And going out and securing a guillotine choke there in round 1, I thought was an impressive performance from him, and showed that he was, he came to play on Saturday night. So I think we got to give him, the dentist, a little bit of credit where it's due, because we did kind of shit all over him in our analysis last week.
Yeah, baby T Wood, man. I apologize.
And I should apologize as well to Tim Means, because I definitely shit all over him as well. And then I think those are the two biggest ones that I think I owe an apology to. I feel like the Oleinik Derek Lewis fight, I don't feel that bad about that one, because Oleinik, if he had just been a little smarter there, could have got that submission in round 1. And I actually felt good with that going to round 2. I thought that, as that fight progressed, we were going to get better and better odds for Alexi there. But so I don't feel that bad about that pick. But those two, I do got to give credit to the guys I threw a lot of shade at.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the main event for a second. Set aside me calling it a second round KO where I hit on a plus 550 bet, and also me telling you that Derek Lewis was going to win. I'm going to put that aside for a second. I did take a live bet on Oleinik
scoreboard
to go by submission at plus I believe it was plus 200. I thought there was value there. And I was really disappointed in Oleinik's decision-making once he had Derek Lewis in a compromised position. I didn't think that choke was really the right decision to go for. For you guys that aren't really familiar with it, it's a compression choke on the diaphragm where you're trying, and I'm not going to get too deep in the X's and O's, but here it works really well when a bigger guy is crushing on a smaller guy. So if you look at Josh Barnett, he won a grappling tournament, a really popular grappling tournament, Metamoris, by crushing a smaller guy with it. But he had a really big dude in Derek Lewis that was 40 pounds heavier than him on the scale. And to be able to apply a force, to crush his diaphragm in that position, I just didn't see it happening. Yeah, Derek Lewis was struggling breathing, but you need to hold that choke for a long time and a lot of pressure. And Derek Lewis is a big, tough guy. I think he should have went for that Americana a lot earlier. And when
that looked good. That looked like it was real dangerous, and I was getting excited. I think you're right, man. Let's just move on because I need to talk about this upcoming week, and we need to have a bounce back. So I lost, I think, 11 units total because that's what I had out on Saturday night and lost every bet. So we're still, Jesse, I mean, you got to feel good, I guess, about, making up a little bit of ground there thanks to me. But ultimately, like, how shitty do you feel knowing that I lost 11 units on Saturday night and I'm still 9 units ahead of you?
The fact that you're coming at me when I never said anything disparaging to you, JL, just shows your insecurity. There's a reason the kid's got the belt, and we're gonna
put your toys away.
On to this thing,
young
and
man,
don't worry.
Put your toys away.
Come December, I will be ahead.
Work. Daddy's working. Put your playthings away, kid.
And I will be ahead. So you can get a touch of this gold someday, but don't worry. The front runner's coming back.
I think you mean plastic.
All right, let's look ahead to UFC 252. 11 fights on the card. It's I think I will say, give you my overview on the card. I think the first 3 fights, hopefully they come out exciting. They're 50-50 fights, but I think after the first 3, it really gets into the meat of the card and is definitely worth a watch, and they're definitely getting my pay-per-view buy on this one. But I'll start off by breaking down the fight between Kai Kamaka and Tony Kelly. Kai coming out of Hawaii. He's got some big fight card experience, and he's got LFA experience. He's also got Bellator experience. Tony Kelly, not much of that big fight experience. He's 5-1 in his MMA career. For me, it's kind of hard to lean one way or the other. Whenever you see these people making UFC debuts, it's always hard to judge the talent they're going up against. In the UFC, you fight the best consistently. For me, it was really hard to make a pick here, especially with no odds out quite yet. I am going to leave Kai with the experience. I think he might be able to pull this one off. It seemed like his MMA fight IQ was a little bit better than Tony's. So we're going to roll with Kai on this one. Not too much more to break down than that, though.
Look how scary Parker Porter looks, man. He's terrifying. Someone should cast him as a villain in like a CW show or something. So we've got Chris Daukaus versus Parker Porter. Even odds relatively going into this fight. And I think that's probably right about where it should be. Daukaus 8-3 professional record, UFC debut for this guy. Kind of known for being a knockout artist. 7 of his 8 professional wins coming by way of knockout. And then Porter, on the other hand, he's going to have a 10 to 15 pound advantage over Daukaus and a little bit more length as well. A little more well-rounded game, but still has that knockout power. I think that with Porter having that height and weight advantage in the heavyweight division, going up against a relatively inexperienced guy, I think that's kind of why these odds are even, and even more so odds making it a little bit even because Daukaus has that history of knockouts. My analysis on this, no play, looking to live bet this one, but kind of similar to what Jesse's talking about there with Kai Kamaka and Tony Kelly. Just really hard to get a grasp on who each one of these fighters is, not knowing the competition that they've really gone up against at this point. So is Daukaus' knockout power going to translate to the UFC? And then, is Parker Porter even the guy that would signify whether it does translate? I don't know. So we'll just kind of watch this one, see how the first few minutes play out, and see if we can grab a live play, because hopefully with even odds opening up, we're not going to lose too much value by doing that.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the live betting momentum going here with Danny Chavez and TJ Brown. I think this fight, watching film on both of them, the only thing that I could find consistent on both of them and that was reliable is that they're both finishers. So seeing who really is having early success in this fight is going to be very interesting. I'm probably going to look to live play it, especially if Danny Chavez is the one with some early success. Maybe catch him before he goes into that minus 200 range. For me, though, I do have a play with one of these fighters being on a 5-fight win streak and the other being on a 5-fight finish streak, and then the other coming in their fight with 3 fights that ended before the distance. I'm going to take minus 135 that the fight does not go to decision on this one. That's going to be my first official play. So Danny Chavez, TJ Brown. This fight does not go to decision. Minus 135, 1 unit play.
Couple of guys coming in trying to set the tone for the night. I like that.
I do my best here. So looking at the next fight, you got Felice Herrig coming off a long layoff. We haven't seen her since the Habib versus Conor McGregor card. She's coming in as she's coming in as a big underdog here at plus 260, going up against a former Invicta champion in Verna Jandiroba. Taking a sip for that one. I don't think I got that one right. Felice Herrig, we know what we're going to get from her. She's a very strong fighter. She's an aggressive fighter, but she really doesn't excel anywhere, in my opinion. She has some big losses on there to people that really, if you're going to be a top UFC fighter, that you should be beating. I am super high on Verna, though. I think that she's going to win this fight. I think she puts a lot of problems for Felice Herrig, and for Felice Herrig to have success, she's going to have to take Verna in positions that Verna is just very competent in and very successful in. I got another play on this one. I'm going to go Verna by submission at plus 250 on this one. That's a 1 unit play. I really like my odds on that one. I think Verna is going to put Felice Herrig in some positions, or Felice Herrig is going to put herself in a position where she can get submitted. And so we're rolling with Verna at plus 250, 1 unit play by submission.
I like that. I think there's some value there for sure. I think a lot of times the women's fights the odds makers seem to think that they're going to go to decision more times than not, which the statistics do back that up. So I think you're getting a little bit more value on that submission than you would if this was a men's fight. So, but I like that play. I might be tailing you on that. So next up, we got Daniel Pineda. I'm just kidding. It's Pineda versus Herbert Burns. So Pineda coming in plus 250. Burns has progressed throughout the week to a minus 300 favorite. Obviously, everybody knows Burns. I did look up Jesse. I did look up to see if he had COVID, but both he and his brother do train separately. So that was something I learned this week. I did not know that beforehand. But Gilbert's little brother, 11-2 professional record, certainly has a lot of potential, but a lot of work to be done as well. 8 out of 11 wins coming by submission. His stand-up game still has a little bit of a way to go until he's really as well-rounded and to the point where his brother has gotten to. And certainly, as we all know, Gilbert worked really hard to get to that point. So Herbert, I think it's right that he's the favorite, but to me, just gets me a little bit nervous, especially because Pineda has 18 wins by submission. So we could see 2 guys rolling and get some high-level BJJ, which would be awesome, I think. And I do think this is going to end up on the ground. I don't think this is one of those ones where because both guys are so good on the ground, it ends up neutralizing and they don't go there and they stay on the feet. I don't see that happening because both of these guys rely so much on getting this to the ground. And to me, with 2 really nasty submission artists, just you never know who's going to catch the other in something. And I think this is a firm stay away. And hopefully we do get to see just some high, especially because I believe Joe Rogan will be calling the fight. We're going to get to see some high-level BJJ with some Joe Rogan commentary. And I'm really, really hoping for that, Jesse.
Dale, if you're not going to make a play, I'm going to make a play here. And yes, I'm equally as hyped for that Joe Rogan commentary on some BJJ. But I got to play on Herbert Burns here. I think this is going to end up on the ground like you think. But I think there's levels to this, as some people may say, and I think Herbert is just miles ahead of Pineda here. And I think Herbert Burns is going
That's
to
disrespectful.
I don't see Herbert Burns getting the decision win. There's a chance that he might knock him out, but I like the minus 140 odds for Herbert Burns by submission. I'm actually going to do a 2-unit play on Herbert Burns by submission at minus 140.
Getting risky, getting frisky. All right. We got Ashley Yoder versus Lavinha Souza. I don't know if I got that right. I'm just going to go ahead and drink it.
I'll take one with you.
So I think this is going to be interesting. Ashley, 7-5 professional record. Interesting fact, Jesse. 7 out of her 12 professional fights have been by split decision. What does that tell you? That tells me I'm not putting money on her in any situation, because some of those I was able to watch some of those highlights. Some of those were fights that she kind of gave away and gave that split decision away. And then I felt like it was more of that than it was her working for that split decision. So that leads me to think that there's value on a Sousa at minus 165. This is the Spider Monkey versus the Brazilian Gangster. If I just had to tell you the nicknames, who would you be putting your money on? I think Sousa at minus 160. Yeah, exactly. Sousa at minus 160, minus 165, 13-2 victory, coming off a loss against Brianna Van Buren. So I think that might be what's kind of downplaying her odds there. I just think she's going to be the more aggressive fighter. I also think she's just purely, plain and simple, the better fighter. So easy 1-unit play for me on Sousa, which for her might be a death sentence because of how I've been doing lately. So who knows?
I'm going to trail you on that one too. I like Sousa a lot. I'm going to go 1 unit on this one as well. I got it at minus 170 when I put that one in. So I like that play a lot, JL. I think that's a solid play. Ashley Yoder at 7-5, man, she just can't put a stamp on rounds. That's really the thing, and that's why you see all those split decisions.
Yep. Easy. I feel like that's easy money. I feel like that might be the easiest money of the night.
Yeah, I really want to do 3 units on it. Officially 1 for now. I'll tweet out if I go bigger. This next fight, I got Merab Deveshvili versus John Dodson. Man, I got the name right because we got to put some respect on Merab's name. This dude is legit.
We did just see him fight, so I'd be disappointed if you didn't get it right.
It's true, but Merab is so freaking good, man. He trains with Aljamain Sterling and everybody up there with Matt Serra. And the guy's takedown for the 135 division is probably the best I've ever seen when you're getting people to the ground. Where Merab struggles, though, is he can't really hold them down all that long. So that's why you're seeing like 10, 14, 15 takedowns a fight from Merab, is because he can't hold the position. Against John Dodson, I think he's really going to want to hold this position, though, because if he can get John Dodson to the ground, that's where he wants to keep him. John Dodson at 125 and at 135 is an explosive athlete that can knock you out. Just look at his last fight against Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood was a promising prospect that John Dodson put out because he's patient. He looks for his shots, and when he lands, he hurts you. Merab can get a little reckless with his stand-up. He's not the best stand-up guy, but at the same time, I think this is just not a good matchup for John Dodson. There is no way I'm going to put money on John Dodson and watch him get ragdolled around there. That's just not a comfortable place for me. So I do have a play here. I'm going to go a 2-unit play on Merab here at minus 240. I like it a lot. I don't think this is the guy that beats Merab. I think there's a fighter or two out there at 135 that's going to give him some problems, but I don't think John Dodson's the guy. So 2-unit play Merab Deveshvili at minus 235 is what I got him at.
I like it. And there's minus 150 odds that I'm trailing you on that. So
Gotcha.
Depends on what my bankroll looks like and if Dame Dollar can get me some money on my futures bet for the Blazers to get into the playoffs.
The Dame Dollar will come through, bro. Put some respect on his name too. Look into the next fight, Jim Miller versus Vince Pichel. Man, I really wanted to bet on Vince Pichel, but I am done looking past Jim Miller. I think he made me eat my words against Roosevelt Roberts. He made me eat my words. I thought he'd win against Clay Guida, but I didn't think he'd look as good as he would. I mean, good as he did, excuse me. But I can't count Jim Miller out of anything at this point, man. Jim Miller, he's predictable on the feet, but if he gets you to the ground, he finds a way to submit you. And even at this age, at this point in his career, he's still one of the most dangerous 155ers when you hit the mat. So I can't disrespect him. I think Vince Pichel is the better fighter here. I think for Vince Pichel to have success, he's going to have to take Jim Miller to a place where he thrives, and that's on the ground and up close. So this is no play for me. When I think Vince is the better fighter, but Jim Miller has a clear way to win, it's a no play for me. So this is one of the few fights that I'm fading on this card.
Ooh. I have a feeling that you're going to have a play on this next one too. And really this should be just part of the head-to-head. So if you want to make this part of the head-to-head, I'm more than happy to do that. But we have Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Junior Dos Santos. Pretty even odds coming in, and I think that's fair, and I think that's putting some respect on Junior Dos Santos's name, having obviously pretty much beaten everybody in the division that's anybody at some point, with wins over Stipe, Derek Lewis, Verdum, Kane, all on his resume. Is coming off those 2 losses against Curtis Blades and Francis Ngannou, though, and one has to wonder, is JDS done? Is this the end for Junior Dos Santos? And I think, especially I feel like you see this with heavyweights where they just kind of hit a wall, man, and it's just they've just taken too much damage. They're big dudes. I feel like at some point it's just kind of a downward spiral for them. So is that what's happening with JDS? And I think we're going to be able to see that against the guy who's very much, despite the loss against Francis, still I think a rising star in this division. Before that, having those 4 straight knockout victories. He's also going to have a 10 to 15 pound weight advantage on JDS. He's 4 years younger. Here's my play, Jesse, and I know you have one as well. With JDS struggling against those power type guys, like Rozenstruik is going to present those same kind of challenges to him. I actually like Rozenstruik at -105 right now to win inside the distance. It's the same odds, at least when I checked last night. Or this morning, excuse me, as Rozenstruik winning by knockout. So I figure might as well just get inside the distance in case something really weird happens. So that's my play. And I was thinking about possibly hedging that with a JDS win at +115, though. I don't really feel that way. Plus, I think it's just more fun to be rooting for a Rozenstruik knockout. So that's my play. That's an official 1-unit play on Rozenstruik to win inside the distance.
So yeah, JL, when I saw this fight get announced, I was pretty excited, and I did do some film study. I texted you before the show that this was a fight that I was interested in hearing what your take was. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. For me, it's interesting. So I pulled their Tapology pictures to post them up here. If you look at this picture of Junior Dos Santos right here, cut up, pre-USADA,
30 years ago.
Yeah, scary looking dude when he was beating everybody in the division, but he doesn't look like that anymore. And he doesn't fight like that anymore either. He kind of he becomes a one-trick pony in some of these fights. He got knocked out by Curtis Blades because he was just, for some reason in his mind, he was just gotten caught up on just throwing this crazy rear uppercut from out of range. And Curtis Blades, I think, maybe if it was a kickboxing match, JDS wouldn't have fought that way. But getting knocked out by Curtis Blades when you're Junior Dos Santos and you're supposed to be representing the sport of boxing in the heavyweight division in MMA, it's just not. It shouldn't be happening. And prime JDS, I don't think that would be anywhere close to happening. He relies on his speed and his power, and his speed is fading, but his power's still there. And when I look at Jairzinho, I've been pretty impressed with him, but he did have some problems in that Alistair Overeem fight. And if JDS mocks that game plan, I think he has a chance of beating Rozenstruik, especially being a 3-round fight. JDS, I think he has the advantages on the ground. I think he has a possibility to submit him because if you look at Rozenstruik's game, there's some clear holes in his ground game that just aren't there. And when he gets stuck on his back, just like a lot of heavyweights that are developing their game, they can't get up off their back. I'm also worried about Rozenstruik at the same time because he just got knocked out in April. And when you get knocked out, lights out.
May 9th.
Sorry, May. Yeah, you're right. You get knocked out, lights out like that. Take this from someone that's got a lot of sparring rounds in. You're just not the same for a while when you get hit like that. And you need some serious time off when you get the lights put out like that. And we've seen fighters come back early. I mean, look at the main event, Stipe versus Daniel Cormier. People said Stipe got knocked out in that first fight because of the damage he took in the Francis Ngannou fight. So for me, I really can't bet on Rosenstruck because the holes in his ground game, and because he might be a little chinny, and because Alistair Overeem rolled out a game plan that might be the blueprint to beat him. On the same other side, I can't bet on Junior Dos Santos because, in my opinion, just to put it clear, I think he's washed. He's not the guy he used to be. But I do think there is a bet here, and it's the over 1.5. Reason I say that is I think Junior Dos Santos is going to try and mimic that Alistair Overeem game plan. He comes from American Top Team. They're a smart camp, and they're going to look for the best way for their fighter to win, and it's that Alistair Overeem game plan. Hold him up against the cage, take him down. I think Rosenstruck is competent enough to keep it on the feet long enough and competent enough on the ground to survive a round. And then I think we're going to get, hopefully, that 2.5 minutes. And at the odds at -115 is what I saw for 1.5. I'm happy to take the play. 1 unit, -115, 1.5.
I feel like that's counterintuitive to my Rosenstruck to win inside of the distance bet, but I'll have to think about that. I understand your logic. I just think that the only danger with that is with it being a 3-round fight, Rosenstruck I think Rosenstruck's going to want to be pushing for the knockout because he kind of wants to get that momentum back after what he went through with the trauma that Francis Ngannou put him through. So that's kind of like the only thing that would give me the hesitation there. And with two heavyweights going at it, I mean, Junior Dos Santos, you said he doesn't have the speed anymore, but he still has the power. You could certainly see a knockout punch come from either one of these guys at some point.
And the thing is, too, man, they both have power, and they both can knock each other out. And I think they both got glass jaws. So if there's a gust to win in the UFC Apex that night, they might come out a little rocked already. So
and small cage. So yeah. Gonna force them together. So
all right. Well, that kicks off our pre-fight. Now we're moving into the head-to-head. So we're starting with Marlon Vera versus Sean O'Malley. JL, I'm going to let you kick this one off. I'm really interested to talk about this fight. I want to know what your thoughts are before I dive into my thoughts.
I love Sean O'Malley so much. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But he is that dude, man, and definitely the future of the bantamweight division. But this is definitely, in my opinion, his toughest test so far. What do you think?
Yeah, slick pass back, JL. But
I don't want to give away my play yet.
That's fine. I'll put mine out there. So Sean O'Malley, I think what we're seeing from him is like a 2013, 2014, 2015 Conor McGregor-esque early buildup. Kind of what we saw is just really good matchups.
Chest piece, tattoo, and everything.
Yeah, he's starching these people, and he's getting the buy-in. He got a really respectable win over Eddie Wineland, but at the same time, Eddie Wineland's going to play his game. I think Sean O'Malley has slick footwork. He's not the hardest hitter, but he is one of the most accurate strikers in the bantamweight division. And he's got a good fight IQ, man. I spent like 3 hours on UFC Fight Pass watching him break down his own fights. If you guys haven't seen that, please do it. He breaks down his whole entire UFC career pre-Eddie Wineland fight, and it's really fun to watch. On the other hand, you got Marlon Vera, man, and he's not an easy fight for anybody at 135. He's a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He puts people in very tough positions. His whole game is he chops a leg kick down, pressures you forward, tries to get you in close so he can land his elbows and create a scramble up against the cage. And
make it nasty.
He is quick to snatch up a submission once he gets you to the ground, and he is very, very dangerous in those positions. As far as how the two match up, I lean pretty heavy on Sean O'Malley. I think Marlon Vera is dangerous in certain positions, but I think what I saw from Sean O'Malley against Quinones, also against Eddie Wineland and a couple other fights, is his feints are good enough to keep Marlon Vera kind of guessing. And I think those are going to create avenues for his footwork to get him out of the ranges where Marlon Vera has success. In open range, if you look at Marlon Vera's fight against Song Yadong, he was getting hit in that kickboxing range a lot, and he doesn't move his head. Sean O'Malley, if you're not moving your head against Sean O'Malley, you're going to get cracked and you're going to get knocked out of there pretty quickly. I think Sean O'Malley is smart enough to know to avoid those strong positions from Marlon Vera. I think Sean O'Malley, I think he either squeaks out maybe a third round KO or a decision here, but don't and I'm going to do a 3-unit play on it because I feel pretty good about it. But at the same time, I know it's going to hurt a 3-unit play on this because it's not going to be an easy ride. If Marlon Vera gets him up against the cage, we better pray Sean O'Malley can get out of to pummel and get out of there as quick as possible, because it's going to be a problem if Marlon Vera gets him closed up against the cage and forces a scramble.
Okay, so I was unclear. You're putting 3 units on O'Malley to win, just money line,
straight up.
Okay. I was a little unclear if you were going to put 3 units on him to win in the 3rd round by knockout, really get risky with it. I mean, here's my question. I almost feel like the odds are a little skewed to O'Malley, and just because of how dangerous Cheeto is. So to me, there feels like there's value on Marlon Vera. I mean, do you feel like there's value there as well?
I mean, if you look at the implied probability at 28%, I would absolutely say this is not Marlon Vera has more than a 28% chance to win this fight. I personally cap this closer to, like, for Marlon Vera's chances to win, I'd probably say it's closer to 35, 40.
Yeah, so I know this is head-to-head, so we have to make a pick. But my official, actually where I'm going to put my money is on waiting to see how the first round shapes up before I place my bet. Because I really want to see how I want to make sure O'Malley's able to keep that distance, because if it does get scrappy, then I think that's when it gets real dangerous, and that minus 310 doesn't make sense at all to me. So I want to see, if O'Malley's able to keep the distance early, we see Marlon try to close it down and O'Malley's footwork just prevails and he's keeping him at range, then I'm throwing the money on O'Malley as fast as I can. But official pick, I'm just gonna go with you and do a 1-unit play on O'Malley so that I can get my official pick in on the head-to-head. But my actual play is just waiting. I think the smart play is just waiting the first couple minutes of this fight, and if that means watching O'Malley starch him in the first 2 minutes, then I think that's a win-win for everybody, regardless of how we bet it.
Yeah, I don't think this is the guy yet. I don't think a slow-paced striker jiu-jitsu guy is the guy. I think we're looking at a high-paced cardio wrestler is the guy that's going to give O'Malley problems. So
yeah,
and like Sean O'Malley,
especially if O'Malley doesn't lay off of the.
Yeah, well, like Sean O'Malley said in his interview today with Ariel Helwani, Ariel asked him, "What does Marlon Vera do well?" And Sean O'Malley said he's good at getting hit. So.
I think that was we didn't mention this before we get to DC. That was my favorite part of the night, was Kevin Holland hinting at the fact that who was it? Who was interviewing him?
Was it Paul Felder?
Yeah, he was hinting with Paul Felder. He was like, "Hey man, you told me to lay off of that. You know what I'm talking about, and my cardio is getting a lot better." And he said it like 3 times. It was fucking priceless. All right, man. We got the main event of the evening. Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic, very much to decide who is the undisputed, not only heavyweight champ, but maybe even best heavyweight of all time. I think it's pretty safe to say that the winner of this fight could very well be considered the best heavyweight in UFC history. And it's a trilogy, man. It's 1-1 going into the 3rd round here. And I couldn't be more excited and jacked up for this, because I really think the even odds on this make a lot of sense. I don't know really which way this is going to go. Is it going to go more like the first fight? Is it going to go more like the second? It's really kind of up to how DC changes his game plan. Am I right?
I don't know, man. I don't know how this fight's going to go. I can tell you, though, man, there's a couple fights a year when they pull the fighters together and they're facing off, and you just get chills, and you know that this is a big moment in time, and this is a fight that we're going to talk about for years to come, and this is going to be like those legendary boxing fights you talk about, like Hagler-Hearns or Foreman-Frazier or Ali-Frazier, so on and so forth, Rumble in the Jungle. I don't know if this is going to be as exciting a fight as those, but this is as important for the UFC heavyweight division as it possibly can get. You have the Stipe Miocic, the longest win streak in heavyweight history. Daniel Cormier knocked him out, has a long reign at light heavyweight, and a lot of success at heavyweight as well in Strikeforce and the UFC. So the fact that it's 1-1 and how those fights went, I think in the first fight with Miocic and Daniel Cormier, and I thought Miocic had a lot of success early, and then Daniel Cormier knocked him out. And then in the second fight, Daniel Cormier had a lot of success early, then Stipe Miocic knocked him out. I just can't think what's going through both of their minds, that they both have knockouts over each other, and I'm sure both of them think they're the better fighter. I think if anyone tells you they feel strongly one way or the other, don't trust them. They're an idiot, because nobody knows how this fight's going to go. I think if I got to make a play here, I'm going to lean Daniel Cormier. And the reason I'm going to put one unit at the minus 115 odds is because I think the wrestling is the biggest X factor here. I think Daniel Cormier showed in the first round against Stipe that he can take him down and hold him down, and Stipe is going to struggle to get back to his feet. If he sticks to that game plan, which I don't feel like he will, he'll win this fight easily. And I think it will be a boring heavyweight fight. I think what's going to happen...
He's not going to stick to it. I feel like this is too emotional for DC. And anyone that follows the sport hears a lot from him now, because he's working his way into his next profession as a talking head, both on the Hawani show and also obviously calling the fights. I think we know enough about DC now to know that once he's in the octagon, it's not quite as easy as sticking to the game plan.
Yeah, but at the same time, yeah, I agree. He's not going to stick to the game plan. This is going to be a stand-up fight, and they're going to box. And Daniel Cormier, he had a lot of success with the leg kick. He has that style where he's holding you out and he's leaning each way, and he rolls with the punches really well, and he comes over the top. But that style also leaves him open to that liver shot. Stipe found it in the fourth round and the third round as well in the rematch. Obviously, I think DC is going to come ready for that liver shot, and I don't think he's going to be able to spam liver shots like he did in that last fight. But if you do come out there with that style, you're open to uppercuts up the middle, hooks over the top. You're open in a lot of different spots. So I don't know, man. You're asking me right now, Wednesday at 7 o'clock Pacific time. I'm leaning DC. We're going to make a 1-unit play on him. Who knows where I'll be at 8 o'clock.
Here's a little taster for you, and this is where I think the smart play comes in. I think you're right. I think DC is the slight favorite because of his wrestling ability. I like a 2 to 3 unit play on Daniel Cormier. And I like to hedge that with a 1 unit play. I got to make sure the math makes sense, because I want it to basically, I got to figure it out on the math to make sure that I might lose a little bit of money, but I'm hedging that with Stipe to knock him out at plus 185 right now. And that has already creeped up from plus 175. So if I can get that to creep up a little bit further, I'll feel really good about that. But I think that's the move there. If I can do a 1 unit play on a Stipe knockout at plus 185, that would get me to 1.85 units. So if I bet 1.5 units on Daniel Cormier, I think that's the way the math would play out. I'm winning either way. And that's because I don't think Stipe wins in a decision. I don't think that this goes 5 rounds and Stipe is the one that wins in a decision. Maybe I'm wrong. There's certainly a possibility that happens. But I think if Stipe wins, it's going to be by knockout. And I think that would be a kind of a cool way to hedge this and be winners either way, and can kind of cheer for both sides. My heart is with DC. I love the guy, and was joking with Jesse. I was actually, Jesse, you didn't think I was going to go there. You didn't think that's what my play was going to be. But I love DC. He reminds me of a buddy and college teammate I had. They just have a very similar, like, happy-go-lucky mentality. But when it's time to, like, get down to business, they put the fucking helmet on and they go. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I love about DC, and that's why I like him so much. So my heart's going to be with DC. But if Stipe pulls this off, it's going to be, I think, by spamming liver shots and eventually getting a shot at the chin and knocking him out.
Got it. Well, if I did that play, I'm sure my sports book would kick me off. They've already got a close eye on me. So, all right. Well,
you got to use 2 separate sports books, Jesse. You got an account on FanDuel and an account on DraftKings.
Well, that concludes our breakdown of UFC 252. As always, tell us what you think in the comments below, and like the video, subscribe. We want to know what your guys' picks are. Tweet us back on Twitter. We will engage with you. We're happy to have fans. We're happy to put out content. But looking forward to the MMA newsroom. Hit us with it, JL.
The bare knuckle fighting championships.
You're right. I don't have that in there because this just came out a couple hours ago. So let's start with that before we jump into anything. Paige Van Zandt signs with the bare knuckle fighting championship. JL.
Worst career move of all time? Question mark. These are the moments where I wish that MMA, UFC, whatever, was a slightly more mainstream sport. Could you imagine Stephen A. Smith on First Take tomorrow morning going off on Paige Van Zandt's decision to go to bare knuckle fighting championship? I don't even know. Like, you and I are pretty invested in this sport. I don't even know where I would even watch it. Is it on YouTube? Is it on?
I think it's pay-per-view. I think they're all pay-per-view events online, and I think they're like $39.99 or something. I don't know. I've never paid for a bare knuckle fighting championship, but I don't think you can show it on TV.
I mean, I might pay for one just to see Paige Van Zandt ruin her Instagram career.
I feel like it's counterintuitive. I feel like it's counterintuitive to her career already.
It totally is. I don't understand. I would love to. Someone needs to get. I'm sure we'll get an Ariel Helwani interview. I hope we do, because I don't understand the thought process, and maybe I'm just missing something. You know, everybody deserves the right to make their own decisions, but like, I don't know what her thought process is on this.
I hope this is like a gotcha moment and we find out that she's actually just a commentator or something on there, not actually.
That would be yes, that would be so funny. I could see that actually being true for sure.
But yeah,
you can't be that dumb that's what you decide to do. I'm sorry. I don't see the benefit. There's no upside to it at all. You're too good of a fighter to be there. You're not a bad fighter. And then also, like, there's just no promotional value to that. And you already talked about not getting paid on the UFC, and you're making all this money through Instagram and SI Swimsuit Edition. Like, I don't understand where the financial decision making is on that.
I mean, I'm sure she's getting paid a stupid amount of money to go do it, but at the same time, if you look at her fighting style, she's not a boxer, and I'm pretty sure that's what they do in the bare knuckle fighting championship. She's not a boxer; she's a grappler, and she doesn't have the best hands. So let's say she runs into some Joe Schmo, like, really good female boxer, we're gonna see her get roughed up. And the scar tissue that comes from getting a bare knuckle landing on the corner of your eyebrow is a lot worse than with some MMA gloves on there. And the cuts don't heal the same either. So, yeah, Paige, I'm not with this decision.
I hope it's a prank. I hope it's an April Fool's. I think you're right. I think that could be. We might be breaking news there. I think we should just go on the record and say that she's not fighting in the bare knuckle. I think inside sources say, Jesse and I have heard from our connections in the MMA community that Paige Van Zandt is actually pulling one over on everybody. She's just going to be commentating for the bare knuckle fighting championships. You've heard it here first, guys. And when that does come up, I do want the credit there, and I will be clipping this part of the video and sending it to anybody that doesn't have the scoop like we do.
I'm sure our fans will appreciate that, JL. Looking at some news that broke earlier this week, I think it was the end of last week, actually. Colby Covington and Tyquil Woodley are actually going to get it on, man. Looks like September 19th is the fight. So
is that Colby's nickname for him?
Yeah, it is. So
you're such a fanboy.
So are you nerds and virgins gonna tune in to Tyron Woodley and Colby Covington?
I'm excited for this one for sure. I feel like if there's anything that's gonna tap or snap T Wood out of his funk, it's a fight against Colby Covington. So I think this could go one of two ways. It's either bye T Wood, we're never gonna really hear from you again, or T Wood's back and that skill set that we saw for so long and the dominance that we saw is going to be back on display. I think the only thing that could snap him out of it, dude, is an actual legitimate hatred for somebody, and I know he hates Colby Covington.
Yeah, and I think this is just beautiful matchmaking by the UFC. T Wood coming off 2 losses back to back, and I think there's the real pulling power for him as a star isn't really there anymore, except when you throw Colby Covington in the mix. They're going to cut some sick promos for this. Tyron Woodley talking about taking this man's head off. Colby Covington with the MAGA hat on, with the ladies around him, talking all his game. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see, and I'm going to be pretty excited come fight week. I can't wait for this fight. And the fact that we're in this COVID culture where these fights get announced in their next month is pretty freaking exciting for me. So it's right around the corner. But something that, I'm kind of excited to talk
Luke,
about
no
is
chin.
This is apparently this will not be the last image we get to see of Luke Rockhold. He said he's coming out of retirement because he decided to. He got bored or he got tired of whatever he was doing, and now he's coming back to MMA. So I suspect we'll see him at 185, not 205 again. But JL, who do you match him up with first?
I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. I'm not excited for another 15 to 25 minutes of my wife saying, "Oh my God, he is so attractive." Because I know that's what's going to happen when this dude steps back into the octagon. As he's walking out, I'm going to hear it. As the fight's going on, I'm trying to watch the fucking fight. I'm going to hear it. I'm not looking forward to that. But I am looking forward to him getting starched again.
Yeah, I think he goes in that Chris Weidman bucket. They get to hang out together because those two are both chinny, and I think they're both past their prime. Luke Rockhold was an amazing fighter in his prime, but I think his days are gone, along with Chris Weidman. I think
it's got to be this, because I heard he was in DC's camp, so it's got to be just like the feeling of being back at a camp, like going through the training with the champ or the former champ, that's kind of getting those juices flowing again. I would imagine that's kind of what spurred him to say, like, I ain't done yet,
I know, but with his style coming back into a 185 division that still has Yoel Romero, that still has Paulo Costa, and
we'll see about Yoel Romero, because I feel like this is the start of a PED suspension.
Kicking it off.
Oh, segue! What a segue!
Well, Yoel Romero does fall out of the Uriah Hall fight that's coming up. I believe it was supposed to be next week, right? So he is no longer fighting against Uriah Hall. To me, I wasn't too high on that fight anyways. I thought it was some weird matchmaking going on. I wasn't a big fan. It was kind of like a lesser version of Israel Adesanya to match him up with. Hopefully we could pull out an exciting version of Yoel Romero in that fight. But he's pulling out. So I don't know what's going on. JL, did you get the scoop on this one?
Sources say the start of a PED suspension for him. He knew this was coming down the line, or his cycle wasn't going the way he wanted it to, and knew that post-fight drug test was going to get him caught. This has all, if you have studied, and I'm not, okay, I'm walking a fine line here, but if you studied the history of PEDs in sports, and you've followed baseball, cycling, football, it tends to be these guys they're always one step ahead of the testers. So they kind of know when a positive test is going to happen. The whole Lance Armstrong thing, the reason he never got caught, or one of the reasons, is because he was always a step ahead. So even there was moments where he tested positive, but was able to work his way around it because of the connections that he had in the system. To me, this kind of feels maybe a little bit fishy, man. I'm not gonna lie. It smells a little bit rotten to me. And a guy like this, I know he's a fucking freak of nature, but still, come on, man. I'm not dumb.
Doesn't this guy have ultra thick corneas too? Isn't there some story about that Dana White said that the doctor was where'd you find this guy? So
yeah, that's what they said about Lance Armstrong too. His heart's 4 sizes bigger than a normal person. This is what people say when they're on PEDs. they go the route of I'm abnormal, that's why I'm so much better than you, rather than the fact that all of these pro athletes are worthy of being pro athletes typically, but what takes them to that next level is hopping on that PED train. Not not accusing him. This is America, so I can say whatever I want to say. But I'm just saying it smells a little bit fishy to me. Luckily, we don't live in the UK where they have like defamation that I could probably get in trouble for saying that.
America. All right.
Allegedly.
So another, this was a big news week actually. So then what came out also, and I know it's probably the most controversial topic this week, was Deiveson Figueiredo has his first title defense against Cody No Love Garbrandt. He's going to make his 125 debut, and this is going to be the topic of our great debate.
Yeah, the Gavin Tucker look-alike.
Why does he get to look like Gavin Tucker? Why can't Gavin Tucker look like...
Because last week we said Gavin Tucker looked like Cody Garbrandt, so it's a callback to the joke for our loyal listeners.
I like it. I like your alertness on that. So, JL, the question on this is the question that everyone's debating is, does Cody Garbrandt deserve this title shot? And I'll let you kick this off.
I said it on Twitter. I'm going to put whatever bankroll I have left at that point, I'm putting it on Cody No Chin to get knocked out by Figgy Smalls. There is no doubt in my mind that does he deserve it? Yeah, I know the argument you're going to be, that's not the fight game anymore. It's not about merit. It's about selling pay-per-views. And I get you, man. I hear it. But, like, honestly, I would rather see Triple C come back. I would much rather see Triple C come back because I just don't think Garbrandt quite deserves it. And I think dropping down to 125, he's going to look so skinny, man. There's no doubt he's getting knocked out by Figgy Smalls. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I think Figueiredo is definitely the favorite in this fight, and he should be. And Cody Garbrandt's chin has been in question ever since his first loss to TJ Dillashaw, and then it's only got worse and worse with the double Dillashaw knockouts and then Pedro Munoz, and now cutting down to 125, an extra 10 pounds is going to do no favors to his chin. So just
what happened to TJ when he cut down to 125? And that dude was on roids. So...
Yeah, so, I think just like in the Rosenstruck JDS fight, if his coach is slapping the towel too hard in front of him, he might come out a little rocked because of the gust of wind. So I'm worried about Cody Garbrandt. But the question does Cody Garbrandt deserve this title shot? I think he does, man. I think the UFC is actually showing favor towards the 125-pound division, which it really hasn't in a long time, by giving them a big star at 135 and bringing them down to 125 in the hopes that they can get some excitement around the 125 division. The UFC matchmakers are not dumb. They can hope Cody Garbrandt is going to win, but I'm pretty sure they feel pretty strongly that Figueiredo is going to win this fight. So it's really trying to build up the 125 division here. I think this is a good thing for the flyweight division, a good thing for the longevity of the division that Cody Garbrandt gets to come down here. And because of his success at 135, because of his personality, because of his look, I think he does get to cut the line. Who else was Figueiredo going to fight? You're going to give him Askar Askarov, who, I don't want to pick at his disabilities, but he's not going to be able to promote the fight in the way that Cody Garbrandt's going to be able to. Pantoja just lost. He just knocked out Benavidez.
What about your brother?
Brandon Moreno?
The assassin, baby. Yeah.
He just signed his fight. I forget who did he just sign against?
Alex Perez.
Yeah, he just signed Alex Perez, and I think
same night.
Yeah, Alex Perez is gonna come at him pretty strong. I like that matchup a lot for Alex Perez.
So that'll essentially be a number one contender fight.
Yeah, I agree. I like Alex Perez's chances in the long run against Figueiredo. I think he has the best chance. Strong wrestling background, good stand up, good enough stand up to stay out of trouble against Figueiredo and give him a couple problems here and there. But I don't think, to your point, Jay, I think you're right on the beat, though. I don't think Cody Garbrandt is the guy to beat him. He's become the Amir Khan of MMA.
What about Rod Dog Royval, babe? Man, let's get him in there.
I mean, I appreciate you throwing Factory X in there, you being a Coloradan, but Royval's got a long way to go before we're starting to talk about titles.
Well, he's got Kai Kara France in September, so
not an easy matchup either. So
yeah. Well, I don't know. I definitely think that the Garbrandt Figueiredo fight is better than a Benavidez trilogy. So I'll take it over that. That's for sure. And I think you're right. As far as hyping it up, I'm just excited. I'm okay with it because I'm excited to make money on it because I don't think I can lose.
So, guys, thank you so much for watching the show. We'll cut it with that. We appreciate you tuning in. As always, like the video, subscribe, tell us what you think in the comments. And ISO Lando, take us home.
Look, mom, your son's a rapper. I done came a long way from robbing, scamming, trapping. You always had a way with words. I picked up on your habits. Everything we've been through in the past, I like it never happened. Look, mom, your son's a rapper. I done came a long way from robbing, scamming, trapping. You always had a way with words. I picked up on your habits. Everything we've been through in the past, I like it never happened. I know.